Greetings, this is Bradford Donald Keller Townsend, and this is a Dyslexic Learners math skills video. And we are now going to do an order of operations, and another term is for the same thing is precedence. And we have jumped up to intermediate level. Now, before you tackle a problem or an exercise, just think about what they're asking for. It's important to know what whoever made up the quiz exam, what they're looking for. So let's see. It says, what is the value of 10 divided by 8 divided by 11, and 11, this means to the second power. That would be 11 times 11. That's what this, in French, it's called a circumflex. Sometimes it's called a hat symbol. Plus, then we have parentheses, and that's pivotal here. 2 plus 6. And then this whole, the parentheses here with 2 plus 6, I'm going to call it the hat symbol here. And that means that it is to 2 plus 1. So in the order of operations, you need to first work within the parentheses. So that would be 2 plus 6. I'm just thinking through the problem first. Then exponents would come next. And you go from left to right. So first I would do this exponent here, 11 times 11, or the 11 to the second power. Then I would do the next exponent going from the left. I'm not actually sure what to do here, but what I'm going to make an educated guess, as I'm not certain, I would take this and make it 3, and then to take 8 to the third power. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just put in 0 a couple times so we can see how the computer does the order of operations. So I'm going to type in 0. Hopefully that's not the correct answer. All right, because I'm trying to get an incorrect answer just so we can see what the Wolfram alpha okay, I'll delete that and do it again, and then it'll let me see what all the view step-by-step solutions, and then I can show all steps so I can kind of move. Alright, and then I have to scroll all the way to the top. For some reason it always puts you at the end at the answer, which is fine. This shows how if you learn the language of Wolfram Alpha, how you would type it in. So they have an acronym, WPG divide, and then a parenthesis, WPG divide, parenthesis, 10, comma 8, comma 11 to the second power. This time they use a different, instead of having that hat or circumflex in French there, and then plus 2 plus 6 in parentheses, and then that's squared, and then they have a plus 1. Okay. So 10 divided, see it says divide here, 10 divided by 8 is 10 over 8. and then they have 10 8, comma 11 squared. So then they're saying reduce 10 over 8 to the lowest terms. Start by finding the GCD. That's the greatest common denominator of 10 and 8. What do you think that might be? I would say 2, because 1 goes into each, and then 2, but if you think of 3 or 4 or 5, that they don't go in. So I'd kind of stop there at 2. So the greatest common denominator of 10 and 8 is 2. So I was correct in my reasoning. Comma. So 10 over 8 equals. So 2 times 5 equals 10. 8 equals 2 times 4. See how you have the 2 here that's common in both. This is the numerator. This is the denominator. Okay, and then this x here, that means times. And the 2 over 2 is the same as 1. So 1 over 1 is 1, 2 over 2 is 1, 3 over 3 is 1, 4 over 4 is 1, 5 over 5 is 1. Okay, so that's what's happening here. 1 times anything is itself. So that 5 over 4 equals 5 over 4. Okay, and this shows you what, if you were using the Wolfram and you knew how to do the language. So it has divide, WPG, divide 5 over 4, which came from over here. And then you have a comma, 11 squared, that means 11 times 11. If this was a 3, it would be 11 times 11 times 11. If this was a 4 exponent, it would be 11 times 11 times 11 times 11. Okay, you get that? And I'll just leave it at that. I was going to say a couple other things, but I don't. Plus, that's an operation. It's kind of hard to see. And then 2 plus 6, and then this 2 plus 6 is in parentheses, and all of that, or this here, is to the second power, which means this times this, and then plus 1. So 2 plus 6 is 8, and then you take 8 times 8. That's what this 2 means. So that means 8 squared, or 8 to the second power. Usually your teachers and professors are going to say squared if this is a 2, and they're going to say cubed if it's a 3. And then after that they'll say 2 plus 6 in parentheses to the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 18th power. You get real big powers when you get into astronomy. And then plus 1. Then it says evaluate 11 squared, so they're just showing you how you would multiply 11. So you take 1 times 1, and that gives you the 1. 1 times 1 is the 1 here. Then to do this one, you shift over, and then 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Then you add down each column here. So 1 plus 0 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 0 plus 1, they didn't write it this time. And then that is 1. So 11 times 11, I just memorized that when I was in grammar school, but it is 121. 121. Okay, and then it has 5, 4, comma, and divide 121, and that's in parentheses, plus 2 plus 6 in parentheses squared plus 1. And all that, there's the bigger parentheses here. So they're evaluating just this portion here, which is that's the next step, is to go to this inner parentheses here. Now, it's a little bit confusing, but it is what it is. This is 2 plus 6. 2 plus 6 equals 8. And then that 8 goes in. See how I'm going diagonally into this slot here? So that's 8 squared plus 1, and then you have divide 5 over 4, 121. And then here they used evaluate, here they're using express. So express is usually means that you're saying it's the same thing in a different way. And then divide 5 over 4, 121 in a fraction form. So here's the 5, that's where that came from. And then you could think of this, this 121 goes into the denominator. So you could think of it as 1 over 121 times 4. You could write it either way, but this is the way they chose to write it. So here's your 5 in the numerator. Because you're dividing, this 121 goes into the denominator, and then this is the x multiplication sign. So that's pretty simple. You take 4 times 1 and you get 4, and then you take 4 times 2, they give you 8, and then 4 times 1. Okay, they didn't multiply that out here. And then you have 8 times itself, or 8 squared, that's the way they're going to word it in your math courses, plus 1. Then multiply 4 and 121 together. I kind of already did that. That's 484, and then 5 is in your numerator, plus 8 squared. They're saying evaluate 8 squared. So that means to do this operation. That's what they're saying by evaluate. So 8 to the second power equals 64. You could also think of it as 8 times 8. You just know that from your grammar school multiplication tables. Or you could use a calculator and go 8 times 8, because they probably allow you a calculator. 5 over 484 plus 64 equals 1. So we're going to need to find a common denominator so that you can add these two. And you have the parentheses here, so that's going to be your next thing to work on here. So you put the fraction 484. I would probably, if I was doing this on a quiz, I would try and just see if 64 divides into that. Okay, to see if, it's just a multiple over a common denominator. Put 5 over 484 plus 64 over the common denominator of 484. So they did it by multiplying both sides. Well, they multiplied this, they have 5 over 484, and they multiplied the numerator by 484 and the denominator by 484, and that you could think of 64 as 64 over 1. So if you multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number, you don't change anything. So in this case, both the numerator and denominator are multiplied by 484. So you could cancel them out, but in this case, because we want this in the denominator, so we're going to get a great big number in the numerator. Okay? So they're showing you how to multiply. And this is a Dyslexic Learners video, so as a dyslexic, you don't want to skip steps. I know it's getting to be a long problem, but when you get a problem like this correct, you really feel good that you've accomplished something. So we're going to multiply 484, and we're going to multiply that, and it says and 64 together. So here's 484, here's the times, here's 64, and then a horizontal line. So you're going to take 4 times 4 is 16. Then I would carry the 1 and take 4 times 8. That's 32 plus the 1. And then that's the 3. And then you carry, the 3 up here. 4 times 4 is 16. Then you add the 3. That's where that 19 came from. and then you're going to take, now you're going to go over a column for the next one. So this is the single digits, 0 through 9, and then you go up to the next, which is your tens. You know, your 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, so we're at 60. So we're going to go 6 times 4 is 24. That's where this 4 comes from. You have to remember to carry that over here. So 6 times 4 is 24. So the 3 that was previously here, if I was doing the problem, I take and I take a lightly drawn line and cross it out so I don't get confused as a dyslexic. So I keep track. So now I have a 2 here, and then I just have to know from my multiplication tables, 6 times 8 is 48, and then what I carried over. Okay, then you have 0 and so on and so forth, and 2, 9. Then you get this, then you add up your columns this way, where my cursor is going, and you take your time, because slower is faster, and 6 plus 0 is 6, 3 plus 4 is 7, 9 plus 0 is 9, 1 plus 9 is 10, that's where the 0 comes from, and you have to carry that over, so that is a 1 plus this 2, and that gives you 3. So even multiplication isn't really all that simple. All this gets better with practice. So you have this great big number, 30,976 in your denominator, and I usually put a comma here in my notation. It makes it easier for me to follow. And then, so we achieved having the same common denominator. So that means we can just add these in parentheses. So the 5 is just going to add to this big number. So they show adding this number, and it came out, plus 1. So they're showing the process of adding here. So 5 plus 6 is 11. They show carrying the 1. So here's the 11. The 7 plus 1 is 8. And then you bring down the 9 and the 3 and the 0 because they weren't affected by that operation here. You didn't have to carry over anything. So now you have this big number. 1 plus 484, but you can't just add 1. You need to write this as 484 over 484. Then you have a common denominator, and you'll add a 484 to this, and it'll all be over 484. And that's what it's talking about here. Put the fraction. Okay. Then we have what I discussed here. That's the step where you make it 484 over 484, so you have a common denominator. Okay. Then add the fractions over a common single denominator. And then they show adding that 484. And the answer is this big number. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm a math enthusiast, so I found that enjoyable going through that problem. And the more I think of it like lifting weights or swimming laps in a pool, as I'm a former amateur and professional athlete, the way to get stronger is doing your crunches, doing your deep knee bends, doing your pull-ups, doing your push-ups, running, doing your road work, running your miles, paddling your surfboard through the waves. That's, it's the same in math, physics, learning a foreign language. You just have to engage and do it. And the more history you read, the more economics or whatever subject, you just gradually over time pick up more and more. And you aren't going to learn math if you aren't willing to put the time in and work through the exercises. I prefer exercises to problems. So I hope somebody finds this of benefit. I don't get a lot of views, partly because I'm not monetized, but I don't want to be associated with certain advertisers, and um, and I don't know who they're going to advertise on my videos. So for now, at least I'm creating this content, and I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to email me at townsend.brad@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.